Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Last night at the grocery store, I had a strange encounter. After a long day at work dealing with a system crash, I was tired and just wanted to grab some basics before heading home. The store was quiet that evening. I needed about 10 items: pasta, sauce, bread, and a few other things. The regular checkout lines had at least 3 people each, so I went to the self-checkout area. I got in line behind one person. While waiting, I checked messages on my phone. When my turn came, I put my basket down and started scanning. That's when I heard a loud sigh behind me. I looked back and saw a man in his 50s wearing a polo shirt tucked into cargo shorts. He was crossing his arms and tapping his foot. I turned back to my scanning. Not my problem if he was rushing. Then the guy walked past the entire line and went straight to the employee watching the self-checkout area. The man asked the employee if she could scan one item for him because he was in a hurry. The employee looked confused. She told him she couldn't check people out from her position. The man's face crunched up. He complained about lazy service, saying it happened every time he came to this store. I tried to focus on scanning, but it was hard to ignore what was happening. The man turned to me and asked if I would let him go ahead because he was in a hurry. I looked at my basket. I had about 10 items and was halfway through scanning them. I told him no, he would be fine waiting. The man rolled his eyes. He said people had no decency anymore. I almost laughed. This guy cut the line, tried to break store policy, then complained about everyone else. I told him he was the one who tried to skip the entire line. He said he only had one item and shouldn't wait behind people with full carts. He kept talking about how, in his day, people would let someone with one item go first. I finished scanning and told him that, in his day, people probably waited their turn too. The employee watched nervously. Another customer behind the man spoke up, telling him there was an express lane at Register 3 for people with few items. The man looked at Register 3, which had a 10 items or less sign and only one person in line. He said even that line was too long and he shouldn't have to wait at all. By then, I had paid and was bagging my groceries. The man moved toward my checkout station, hovering nearby. I told him there were 4 empty stations he could use instead of waiting for mine. He looked around but just stood there waiting for me to finish. I asked what was so urgent that he couldn't wait a minute like everyone else. He said it wasn't my business, but admitted he needed beer for a game that was starting. I finished bagging and asked if beer for a sports game was really an emergency that justified cutting in front of everyone. He mumbled something about young people not understanding respect. Other customers were watching us. As I picked up my bags, the store manager came over. The employee had called for help. The manager asked what the problem was. The man complained about terrible service and how no one would let him check out quickly. The manager told him about their first come, first served policy and pointed out the express lane and open stations. The man threatened to shop at Supermart instead, saying their customer service was better. The manager told him he could shop wherever he wanted, but here he needed to follow the rules like everyone else. The man finally went to an open station, muttering to himself. As I walked past him toward the exit, I wished him enjoyment of his game. He didn't answer, but his expression said it all. The world doesn't revolve around him, even if it means missing the first minutes of a game. I need to get this story off my chest. My sister has been blind since birth, but she's always been independent. She's 27 now and refuses to let her disability define her life. She lives in her own apartment with her service dog and has a good job as a counselor at a community center. I've always been protective of her. Growing up, I was the one who fought the kids, who made fun of her, walked her to school, made sure she was included in everything. Even as adults, that protective instinct never went away. Last month, something happened that made all my worst fears come true. My sister had gone grocery shopping with her neighbor, something they do every Saturday. The neighbor is a kind, older woman who's been living next door to my sister for about 3 years. They have a routine, they shop together, then the neighbor helps carry the bags to the car and drives my sister home. That day started like any other Saturday. My sister texted me that she was heading out for shopping. I was busy with work, so I just responded with a quick "have fun" and kept working. Around noon, I got a call from her. I could tell something was wrong by the tremor in her voice. She asked if I could come to Memorial Hospital, telling me she was okay but something had happened. I asked what was going on and if she was hurt. She said she was fine, just shaken up with a bump on her head. The doctors had said she didn't have a concussion but wanted to keep her for observation for a few hours. I told her I'd be right there. When I arrived at the hospital, I found my sister sitting on an exam bed with her neighbor beside her. There was also a police officer in the room taking notes. My sister had a bandage on the back of her head. I asked what happened and who had hurt her. The police officer introduced himself and told me that there had been an attempted kidnapping in the grocery store parking lot. My heart nearly stopped. My sister told me she had been waiting outside the store while her neighbor went back in to grab something she forgot. A woman had approached her claiming to work at the store and said her neighbor had asked her to help my sister to the car. The neighbor said she should never have left my sister alone even for the 5 minutes she was gone. My sister told her it wasn't her fault. My sister continued her story, saying how this woman took her arm and led her across the parking lot. At first, she hadn't suspected anything, but then they walked for much longer than usual. When they stopped and the woman opened the car door and started pushing her inside, my sister realized something was wrong because the car didn't smell like her neighbor's and the seat felt different. She started resisting, calling out for help. The woman, who I'll call Karen, started getting aggressive. My sister shouted that this wasn't the right car, but Karen kept telling her not to make a scene and to just get in. When my sister refused, Karen grabbed her arm so hard it left bruises and tried to force her in. That's when my sister started screaming. A security guard heard and came running over. Karen panicked when she saw the guard. She hit my sister on the back of the head with something hard and pushed her to the ground. Then she jumped in her car and tried to drive away. The security guard stood in front of Karen's car to stop her from leaving. Karen revved her engine like she was going to run him over. Another security vehicle pulled up behind her, blocking her escape route. The neighbor heard the screaming from inside the store and ran out. She saw the crowd gathering in the far corner of the parking lot and knew something was wrong. By the time my sister's neighbor reached them, the security guards had forced Karen out of her car. She was screaming that she hadn't done anything wrong and that my sister had asked for her help. My sister said the police arrived quickly and that there were surveillance cameras in the parking lot that caught everything. The police officer filled in some details. Karen was a known offender with a history of similar attempts at other locations. She'd been targeting vulnerable people, mainly the elderly and disabled, to rob them or worse. They found restraints and duct tape in her car. I asked what was going to happen to Karen now. The officer said she was being charged with attempted kidnapping, assault, and various other charges. Given her record, she would be facing substantial jail time. After the officer left, I sat with my sister while we waited for her discharge. I couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if she hadn't realized something was wrong, if the security guard hadn't been nearby, if her neighbor hadn't come looking for her. My sister could tell what I was thinking. She said she knew I was wondering if she should be living alone and if she was really capable of taking care of herself. I tried to deny it, but she stopped me. She pointed out that this could have happened to anyone. Being blind didn't make her a target. Being alone did. And she wouldn't stop living her life because of one terrible person. She was right, of course. As much as I wanted to keep her safe forever, that wasn't fair to her. In the weeks since, my sister has started taking self-defense classes designed for people with visual impairments. Her neighbor now has a designated meeting spot if they ever get separated, and I've been working on my own anxiety, trying to find the balance between being protective and being overprotective. Karen is awaiting trial, and the evidence against her is overwhelming. My sister plans to testify, saying she wants to make sure this woman never gets the chance to hurt anyone else. I've never been more proud of her strength and resilience, or more grateful that she's safe. I spent my life on the water. 50 years in the barge towing industry teaches you things. I loaded barges in winter when ropes freeze in your hands. I worked in fog so thick you can't see 10 feet ahead. I went through storms that would make most people quit. Through it all, I made systems that were efficient, safe, and got the job done easily. That summer was brutal. The heat made the air shimmer above the deck and turned the river into a mirror of light. We had to clear 3 barges from the fleet moorings for a refinery run. Standard stuff I'd done hundreds of times. At the start of the shift, I gathered the crew. I told them our plan to start with the barge furthest in, bring it around to the side channel, then grab the second and third in sequence. One of the newer deckhands, a guy who'd been with us maybe 6 months, started shaking his head. He said my approach would take forever, and we should start with the closest barge and work back, saying we'd save at least an hour. I told him that with my decades of experience, I knew what worked best. He kept saying there were better ways to do the job. I ended the talk and told everyone we were doing it my way. I heard grumbling as we worked, comments about being stuck in the past, about being a hard A, about not being open to new ideas. We cleared all 3 barges and built the tow in about 90 minutes and headed downriver. Job done, I thought. 2 weeks later, after my time off, I was called to Human Resources. My supervisor sat behind his desk looking uncomfortable. He told me there was a complaint about how I managed on deck. I asked if he meant my way of getting the job done safely and well. He said that, according to the complaint, I was stubborn and wouldn't consider new ideas, and that I shut down crew suggestions. I defended myself by saying their idea would have had us moving in the Narrows during busy traffic. My supervisor just said I should listen more, suggesting that younger crew members might have good ideas. I left that office angry. 50 years of experience, and I'm getting a lecture about being open to new and improved ways to run a towboat. When my next shift came, we had the same job, 3 barges from the same fleet for another refinery run. Same crew too, including Mr. New Ideas. This time I tried something different. I told the crew I'd been told to be more open, so today we would do things their way. I asked where they wanted to start. The crew looked surprised, especially the vocal deckhand who complained. He suggested starting with the barge closest to the channel. I agreed and let them handle it. I stepped back and watched their more efficient plan. The temperature was in the high 90s, and after 90 minutes, they had cleared just 1 barge. One of the quieter hands radioed me saying it didn't take this long last week. I told him someone complained to management that I was too slow and wouldn't listen to better ideas. I asked if they had more suggestions and called for a water break before continuing. During the break, the crew came to me looking tired and sunburned. The deckhand said their way was taking much longer and asked if we could use my method. I asked if they were sure, saying I didn't want to mess up their plan and that I didn't want another complaint about not giving them a chance. They got my point. The deckhand said I was right, admitting they hadn't thought about the current or traffic patterns. It took another hour to finish, nearly twice as long as my way. Once moving, I called the crew together. I told them I wasn't against new ideas, but my experience showed what works. I said before each job we'd have a quick meeting where I'd explain my plan and hear their ideas, but the final choice would be mine. I asked if that was fair. They all nodded. The complainer didn't look at me, but I could tell he learned something. Those meetings worked for a while but slowly stopped. The crew saw them as extra work. A few years later, one of the regulatory agencies made those safety meetings required with paperwork and duplicate. I retired 3 years ago. I miss the work, the river, a well-built tow, even dealing with difficult crews. It's a good career if you watch, learn, and accept that you'll rarely sleep at home. But I don't miss having to prove myself to someone new when I've spent a lifetime learning the best way to do things. Experience really is the best teacher, especially when old ways are still the best ways. Last week, I started my new job as a receptionist at a local vet clinic. We also have a shop selling pet food and medications, including anti-parasitic treatments for animals. Since I'm new, the main veterinarian, who owns the place, has to watch me. He lets me handle transactions while he watches so I can learn. Eventually, I'll manage everything on my own, but for now, I'm still learning about all the products. Today was normal. I was behind the counter organizing paperwork when a lady walked up to the counter without looking at any products. The woman told me to sell her the same parasites medication as before because it worked well. She didn't greet me, just made her demand like I should know what she meant. I asked which medication she meant and started asking about her animal, its size, and other information to help find the right product. She said I should know which one she meant. She said it was effective, lasting for a year against both external and internal parasites. I told her we didn't have any medication like that. I said that most of our anti-parasitic medications only last for about a month. The woman said we did have such a product. She said she had bought it from our clinic before. Her voice got louder, making other customers look our way. I was getting nervous when the doctor walked in from the back room. He came straight to us. The doctor asked if everything was okay. The woman turned to him. She said I was refusing to sell her the medication she asked for, pointing at me like I was hiding something from her. When the doctor asked which medication she wanted, she again described a year-long internal and external parasite treatment that worked well for her pet. The doctor looked confused and said, "We don't have any medications like that." He said almost all our anti-parasitic treatments only last about a month. This made the woman angrier. She said we had the medication and claimed that I had told her about it and sold it to her last year. The doctor said that would be impossible since this was only my first week working at the clinic. There was silence. The woman's mouth was open but she said nothing. She looked from the doctor to me and back again. All the other customers were watching, some pretending to be interested in dog toys while listening. The woman went from confused to angry. She shouted that this was ridiculous before walking out of the store, almost knocking over a display of cat treats. After she left, the doctor turned to me with a smile. He said sorry about that and that some customers think they know more than we do. I said it was fine, but I was confused. I asked if she might have been talking about a yearly vaccine instead of a monthly medication. The doctor said maybe, but she mentioned parasites specifically. He suggested she might have mixed up our products with something else, or was thinking of the yearly heartworm injection, which doesn't work against external parasites. The rest of the day was quiet, but I kept thinking about what happened. It was my first time dealing with a customer who was so sure they were right they couldn't admit being wrong, even when shown clear proof. The doctor told me this happens often. People mix up products or forget details, but instead of admitting their mistake, they insist the problem is our fault. What made it funny was her saying I had sold her this year-long anti-parasitic medication last year, when I'd only been working there for 1 week. When people need to be right, things like facts don't matter much. That was how I learned about difficult customers at the vet clinic. I'm told there will be more, but hopefully none as entertaining as the woman who was so wrong about when I started working. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.